Who will be next to commit to the Auburn Tigers? Kamarion Franklin, TJ Lindsey?
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yahtzee.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy Recruiting Thursday. It means we're hanging out with Brian Smith, Locked On Recruiting Insider and Expert. And Brian, we'll get to Jalewis Solomon. I want to hear your thoughts on how Auburn pulled off that last-second heist. South Carolina's still not over it, which is totally okay with me. We'll also get your thoughts on Auburn's 2024 class. A few guys have committed since we last spoke. But first thing, let's talk about some of these big targets that apparently are committing in the next week or two. Let's start with Kamarion Franklin, the 5-star defensive lineman. Your thoughts on him as a player, and then also what are you hearing about who he could possibly commit to?
The 4 schools still in it for the big fella are Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn, and Miami. Based on, I followed his recruitment as close as anybody's this year because I cover Miami. He's been there 5 times. He's been to Ole Miss like 8. His visit schedule has been crazy. Auburn has made the biggest surge of late, and I think they've got a great shot at him. I don't know what exactly Auburn is selling, but when kids visit there, they love it. Solomon, obviously, being a kid, we'll talk about in a second about that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
As a player, the question with him is, where does he end up? Strong side in, inside, rotate back and forth. But he is a man-child. So I've seen him work out with Jason Taylor, the former Hall of Famer. He's at the University of Miami now. This is a kid you just can't teach, and it's why all these schools are going after him. I think he's going to play early no matter where he goes. I mean, if I had to guess, I'm going to say Auburn or Miami on the trend. I think he would have committed to Ole Miss already. He lives like less than an hour for there.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, there's nothing else they can show him. Tennessee was allegedly the leader for a while, but that was before Miami, and now Auburn has trended. So I'm going with one of the last two right there.
Yeah, Auburn feels really good about their chances with them. I'm sure Miami staff feels really good about their chances with them. So we'll certainly see what happens there. Another defensive lineman that is worth following from an Auburn perspective, TJ Lindsey. It seems like Auburn's the favorite to land his services. Arkansas kid. Not really like super tested. That's why some people are a little concerned with TJ Lindsey, just because people don't love Arkansas high school products. That's just kind of part of it. I'm sure you've said that here before as well. But TJ Lindsey, what are you hearing about him?
That is a tremendous prospect. Franklin's got maybe more upside, possibly. Yeah. TJ's polish is on a whole nother level. I don't know who's coached him, but I think he's a top 100 player pretty easy. He's very undervalued. Being from Arkansas hurts him. I get it. He did just transfer to IMG, though, so I'm actually going to see him Friday. I'll be curious to see what he thinks about the recruiting process and all that stuff. But, man, he is athletic. He's long. He's like Kamarion. Could play strong side or move in. And right now, Auburn only has like 1 true D lineman in their class. So you could make an argument that's the 2 most important guys left on the board. At least they're in that conversation. I haven't heard anything other than Auburn is the likely landing spot of late, but I haven't delved into it. I know I'm going to be seeing him, so I'll just wait to speak to the horse himself.
Sure.
But big-time talent, man. And again, I know he's from Arkansas, but the film does not lie. Really good player.
Yeah, big, moves well, and you'll be able to give a even better report after you see him and talk to him on Friday. So Auburn loses out on 5-star KJ Bolden, and it seems like they then pivoted to Zaquan Patterson. He's a 4-star almost everywhere. Rivals has him as a 5-star, Brian, but just looking at the On3 industry rankings, 93.79, very, very talented player. You know this kid pretty well, right?
Yeah, he's a kid that, like, when I walk up to him, it's like, hey, how you doing? Like I would see you or something.
Yeah. You'd be more excited to see me. Let's just be honest.
I'm not going to make any comments on that.
Please don't. Please don't. Let me just have this.
Zaquan's one of the rarest players you're going to find as a secondary guy. He plays strong safety, free safety. He's one of the only guys, and I know John Garcia will contest to this, that can line up in front of none other than Jeremiah Smith and play man coverage against him. Jeremiah's best player in the country. They just happen to play on the same high school team. He had a play recently in a practice where he just completely crushed him on a rep. Nobody ever gets anything against Jeremiah. So he's a rare player. You can move him all around, and he's smart too. He will move guys around. He will be the polished back end guy for you in the defense. That's why they have him ranked so highly, and he's got offers from everybody.
Yeah.
Your point about Auburn is unique. I actually wrote about Zaquan earlier today. I'm like, look, Miami's the likely pick. That's the easiest one for him. But why hasn't he picked it yet? A, and B, Auburn he's needed more there is probably the way I would look at it. So he hasn't been around there. He's been to Miami 500 times. He lives in South Florida. If he takes any more trips to Auburn, that would make me very nervous if I was Miami's staff. So
what's your gut feeling right now on it?
If he had to pick today, I'll say Miami. There's rumors that I know his coach, Damon, his head coach, wants all his kids. He's got a ton of Power 5 kids to commit before the season. But with these, like Zaquan's not going to make a final decision until December. A commitment is almost like me telling you that I'm going on a starvation diet. It doesn't mean much. Okay. It's not going to happen.
Sure.
So if Auburn gets him back on campus, which I expect them to, look out, because that's a program that's trending well. And we both know they need help in the back end after this year. I think they got a pretty good secondary this year. Going to be losing some key guys, and he can play multiple spots. He's even playing corner this year for Chaminade. And at his, he's like 195, 200, right in that range. He's freaky, man. This is a rare cat. I think Auburn will go all in on him because everybody is. Michigan, Ohio State, Auburn, Florida State. He's a dude. Auburn, I think, is the second most likely pick right now. Behind Miami.
And that's what it kind of comes down to. And then, you kind of make that offer, this is what we can do. And that's what it's really kind of coming down to. It seems like in recruiting these days. As far as like what you're hearing from players about Hugh Freeze, because you mentioned it. You talked about how kids are going to Auburn and then everything kind of changes. They seem to like what Hugh Freeze is doing. What do you think that is?
The same answer for this across every school in the country. Kids pick the coach wearing the shirt, not the emblem that's on the shirt. It'll say Auburn, and I know Auburn fans want to hear they're picking the coach.
Sure.
They're picking the staff. If you're not building relationships, and even when he was at Ole Miss, he was one of the more friendly, easygoing guys. Everybody liked him. And I don't think there's going to be any problem with this staff moving forward. He's got some really good recruiters on his staff anyway. You and I talked about this several times. I just think people were surprised because Auburn's been down. And then they go, I've been there one time, but it was a very memorable experience. It was great. The people were super easy to get along with. It's not a hard sell, man. And then you've got a real coach now. No offense to Mr. Potato Head, as you like to call it.
Yep. So, the potato famine is behind us. Yes. That
is correct. So if he visits this fall, and I talked to Zaquan last week, he told me he was going to, I would assume that Auburn is going to be right there. So we'll find out in December for sure, but Auburn's got a really good chance.
Brian, since we last spoke, Auburn flipped 5-star linebacker DeMarcus Riddick. They flipped 5-star wide receiver Perry Thompson, and they stole 4-star Jalewis Solomon away from South Carolina. Let's discuss what you think about Auburn's class now in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. I want to encourage you to head over to LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That is LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege, because LinkedIn is the proud recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. And every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you land the right person. You don't want to go through that hiring process over and over and over again. Just do it right the first time. And LinkedIn Jobs can help you do that. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Post your job for free today. Of course, terms and conditions apply. Brian, as we currently chit-chat about this, Auburn sits with the 14th ranked class in the country, according to On3. And then when you look at average player ranking, they're 4th in the country, only behind Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama. And, adding a pair of 5-stars certainly helps with Perry Thompson and DeMarcus Riddick. But then also just the way they pivoted after losing out on KJ Bolden and turning their focus to Jalewis Solomon. Really high-level recruiting stuff that Hugh Freeze is doing at Auburn.
This is the difference right here, what you said about the ranking. not only do you need really good players, you need them at key spots. They're helping themselves in the secondary. They're getting big time receivers. They have closed the gap a lot faster than I think, and I would guess that you probably. I mean, you're an Auburn fan. I would imagine you're surprised at how quickly this is flipped. Am I wrong on that or no?
No, this is an incredible dream that I never want to wake up from.
I like your honesty. It is fantastic. It is fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to keep waking up and it's like, oh, we have the 40th ranked class again. Great.
No, that is not the case.
Yeah,
if they can finish strong, like they got to get at least one of Franklin and Lindsey, barring somebody else. They need big body defensive linemen.
Yeah.
To win in the SEC West, it's always been that way. And I know the league's, I don't even know what it's going to be, but to compete with these teams, you need big body defensive linemen, and they need another impact guy on offense. They've got plenty of speed and size, though. They're headed in the right direction. They could finish in the top 7 or 8. Did you really think that Hugh Freeze's first class was going to finish that high? I didn't.
No.
I mean,
no, I did not. No, I did not.
If you'd have told me top 12, I'd have said that would have been the under for me. I'd have said, right now, the way they're trending and who they're still in on, I'm just the opposite. 6 months is a long time in recruiting. It's an eternity.
No doubt.
And they're doing really well, and we still have the fall visits. This is going to get really interesting for them.
Yeah, and you just look at, okay, TJ Lindsey, let's say he's added. I don't think that's a stretch. And then DeAndre Carter is another one. He's an offensive lineman from California you're really high on. It's like you add those two dudes, I mean, it's only going to get better. This class is only going to get better, assuming you're able to land those guys. And then it's just, can you get a Kamarion Franklin? Can you get a Zaquan Patterson? And it's like, if you can get one of those 2 5-stars to join this group and you kind of take care of the prospects that you're favored to get at this point, it's a really good class. One of the best classes Auburn will ever have.
I think that this could kind of be the norm, though, because I remember talking to Garcia about this. Used to be when Auburn did really well, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. They did much better in Southern Alabama, and they've lost that over the last Montgomery to Mobile. They have to get that back, and they've kind of started. If they can just get 1 or 2 more like Perry, you can't lose kids from Southern Alabama like that to the other school up north. You can't. And they flipped it.
Yeah.
You get a couple more like that, and they continue to recruit Georgia well, get somebody like Solomon, et cetera, every year that everybody wants. There's no reason Auburn shouldn't be a yearly top 10 recruiting team.
Brian Smith, how can people check out everything you've got going on right now, brother?
YouTube and definitely on Twitter at FBScout_Florida. Actually, really trying to figure out a way to do a podcast regarding how all the changes with these conferences, as they're called, impact recruiting, because like Cal and Stanford being added to the ACC is about as asinine as anything I could possibly imagine. So I'm struggling with that, but it's still fun.
Yeah, very thankful to be in the SEC. You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.